It started with a simple message. 6 words broadcast across every known galactic channel, from the frozen moons of Yelros to the shimmering orbital towers of Veltris Prime. Humanity withdraws. All ties severed, effective immediately. No explanation, no room for debate, no plea for understanding, just cold, brutal finality. Ambassador Jonathan Creed stood alone inside the now vacant Terran embassy on Altharian Prime, the so-called heart of the Council. Empty datapads littered the conference tables, chairs overturned, shattered glass underfoot. Less than an hour ago, this place had been packed with envoys, translators, aides, and security. Now, only Creed remained. He stared out the massive observation window as a storm of Council starships buzzed outside like panicked hornets. News of Earth's sudden withdrawal had already thrown the entire Galactic Council into a spiral. Emergency meetings, frantic messages, fleets mobilizing without orders. And not a damn thing would change Creed's mind. Not anymore. A low hiss from the doorway. Councillor Dresden, towering reptilian elder of the Clorath Dominion, slithered in, his scales gleaming under the cold artificial lights. His usual smug arrogance was replaced by something Creed hadn't seen before in the old bastard's yellow eyes. Fear. "Human," Dresden rasped, voice strained. "This is madness. You will not abandon the Council. We are interdependent, economically, militarily." Creed cut him off with a cold glance. "We were interdependent. Past tense." Dresden's tail lashed the floor. "Do you have any concept of what this action will cause? The balance of power?" Creed turned fully, voice like iron. "The balance of power died when your Council stood by and let the Zarnath raids butcher Terran colonies on Helios Reach. Over 30,000 civilians, men, women, children, torn apart while your fleets watched." Dresden's throat sacs fluttered nervously. "Those incidents are under investigation." Creed laughed, bitter and sharp. "Investigation? You've been investigating for 2 years, while more of my people died. And when we sent a relief fleet, you blocked us under Council law you created to keep humanity docile." The Clorath counselor flinched. He had no rebuttal. There wasn't one. Creed stepped closer, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. "We've had enough. No more councils. No more diplomacy. Earth stands alone now, and if any fleet crosses our borders—" He let the threat hang, unfinished but clear. Dresden swallowed. "The Council will not take this lightly." Creed's eyes narrowed. "I hope they don't." With that, he brushed past the counselor and strode from the embassy, the human flag already stripped from its pedestal. The message was sent. The withdrawal was real. Far above the planet, aboard the Terran heavy cruiser Resolute, Admiral Victor Kane watched the storm unfold from his command chair. Dozens of garbled council messages scrolled across the ship's comm screens. Demands, pleas, warnings. Kane ignored them all. His fleet was already mobilizing along the border systems. Earth's fleets were going dark. No more shared codes, no more patrol agreements. "Admiral," his XO, Commander Ross, said grimly, "Council fleets are repositioning. Some warships already heading toward Helios sector." Kane's jaw tightened. "Expected." "They think we'll blink," Ross added. Kane gave a humorless smile. "They've forgotten what humans do when backed into a corner." He leaned forward, voice like steel. "Order the fleet to full combat readiness. Any unauthorized incursion, shoot to kill, no warnings." Ross saluted sharply. "Aye, sir." As the orders rippled across Terran space, a ripple of fear and fury spread through the Galactic Council. For centuries, the humans had been seen as a rising but manageable species, clever, tough, but ultimately bound by council treaties and red tape. Now those shackles were broken, and no one knew what Earth would do next. The Council's Grand Assembly chamber had not been this chaotic in decades. Ambassadors shouted across the chamber floor. Councilors from rival empires cursed and accused one another. Emergency declarations flared across the central holoscreens as every faction scrambled to understand what Earth's withdrawal truly meant. In the elevated high seat, Chancellor Verak, an ancient Ilari of skeletal frame and translucent skin, slammed his staff against the dais, attempting to restore order. His voice, thin but magnified by the chamber's acoustic systems, echoed above the din. "Enough! This assembly will come to order." Slowly, grudgingly, the chamber quieted. Verak's milky eyes swept the gathered representatives. Ambassador Creed's message was clear. The Terran Confederation has severed all diplomatic ties with this council. The question now is, why? And what will be done? A guttural snarl came from Warlord Krasik of the Dral Confederacy, a hulking, tusked war beast in scarred battle plate. "We know why," Krasik bellowed. "Because the humans are weaklings who cannot stomach council law. They crave conquest. They seek excuses to wage war." A chorus of growls and roars from the more militant factions echoed his words. But from a corner of the chamber, a different voice rose, cold, calculating. Archon Vela of the Sithar Dominion, her voice a sharp blade. "Number, you misunderstand their psychology. This is not a bid for war. It is retaliation. The Zarnath raids, the Council's inaction, pushed them to this breaking point. The humans see betrayal in our delay." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. No one dared speak it outright, but the truth hung heavy in the air. The Council had known about the Zarnath attacks on Terran colonies. They had chosen political convenience over justice, and now they were paying the price. Chancellor Verak's voice rose again. "Regardless of blame, the strategic situation is critical. Humanity possesses one of the fastest-growing military fleets in known space. Their refusal to share navigational data or tactical schematics now places Council fleets at risk. We must—" Suddenly, a comms officer rushed into the chamber, face pale. He whispered urgently into Verak's ear. The Chancellor stiffened, then turned to address the assembly. "New reports. Multiple Terran fleets have vanished from Council tracking grids. Warp signatures scrambled. Sensor data corrupted. They have gone dark." An audible gasp swept through the chamber. Gone dark. The oldest military signal in existence. In Terran doctrine, it meant one thing: war footing. Far from the politicking and posturing, aboard the Terran battleship Titan, Admiral Kane watched the unfolding chaos from a secure channel. The ship's war room holograms displayed Council fleet movements, panicked repositioning, hastily formed defensive lines along the Helios and Orion sectors. Commander Ross approached, datapad in hand. "Intercepted a Council transmission, sir. They're calling for an emergency military summit, trying to form a unified response." Kane snorted. "Good luck with that. The Council hasn't fought a real war in over a century. Too many factions. Too much distrust." Ross hesitated. "Orders, sir?" Kane's gaze hardened. "Maintain blackout protocol. No signals. No pings. Let them flail in the dark. If they push across the line, we'll be ready." Back in the Grand Assembly, panic was setting in. "This is madness," Councillor Drazen hissed. "We must dispatch peace envoys immediately. If the Terrans believe we intend war—" Krasik slammed a fist against the railing. "Peace is weakness. We should strike now before they mass their fleets." "Strike?" Vela's voice cut through like a whip. "Against human space? You would doom us all. You think their fleets are the threat? No. Their minds are. Their capacity for asymmetric warfare. For vengeance." The chamber fell into tense silence as her words sank in. Everyone knew the old human stories, of Earth's ancient wars, of battles fought not with overwhelming strength, but with brutal cunning and ruthless determination. The Terrans had no love for the Council anymore, and no moral leash remained to hold them back. In a secure bunker beneath EarthGov Command in New Berlin, President Nathan Hale met with his War Council. The air was thick with tension. "Any word from the Council?" Hale asked, voice clipped. "Nothing but empty threats and desperate offers," replied Director Marcus Vane of Terran Intelligence. "They didn't expect us to actually walk away." Admiral Kane's holofeed crackled to life. "Mr. President, our fleets are in position. Blackout protocols holding. Council forces are floundering." Hale's jaw tightened. He had once believed in the Council, had fought to make humanity a part of it. But Helios Reach had shattered that dream. The mass graves on Helios 7 haunted him still. "No compromise," Hale said flatly. "They let our people burn. Now they fear the fire themselves." Vane leaned in. "We have other options, sir. Psychological operations, economic disruptions. Hit them where it hurts, without firing a shot." Hale considered it, then nodded. "Do it. But make one thing clear to every damn faction out there. If they cross into Terran space, we will finish what they started." Across the galaxy, fear spread like wildfire. Merchant guilds panicked. Trade routes collapsed. Privateers smelled blood. Border worlds began hoarding supplies. And in the dark corners of space where old grudges simmered, ancient enemies of the Council began to stir, emboldened by the sudden fracture in galactic unity. For centuries, the Council had relied on Earth as a stabilizing force, disciplined, pragmatic, loyal to treaties. Now that anchor was gone, and the galaxy was drifting toward the abyss. On board the Council flagship Sovereign Dawn, Grand Admiral Telvek watched the situation deteriorate on his tactical displays. "We are bleeding systems," his adjutant reported grimly. "Neutral powers are withdrawing. Former allies are turning inward. The Terran economy was more integral than we admitted." Telvek cursed under his breath. He had warned the Council this would happen, warned them not to provoke the Terrans, but arrogance had ruled the day. And now Earth was free, unbound, enraged, and dangerous. Admiral Kane stood on the observation deck of the Titan, watching the stars. In the darkness, the ancient instincts of his warrior ancestors stirred. For too long, the Council had treated humanity as pawns, tools to be used, lives to be spent. Now, they would learn. "Status of Helios?" he asked. Commander Ross replied, "Reconstruction underway. Orbital defenses nearing completion. Civilian evacuations successful." "Good." Kane's voice was ice. "We'll hold that line, and if they come for us, we remind them why humans survived when so many others fell." He turned back to the stars, a grim smile on his lips. The game had changed. The galaxy would never be the same again. And humanity was just getting started. The first Council fleet crossed the line 3 days later. Not officially. No grand declaration of war, just a reconnaissance force. A dozen ships from the Veltrani Combine, acting without full Council sanction. But in the vacuum of space, intent mattered little. Borders were borders, and Earth had made its position crystal clear. Any unauthorized incursion would be met with force. The fleet entered the outer Helios sector, their sleek silver hulls shimmering against the dark. Captain Raylan Dross, a veteran Veltrani officer, led the formation. His orders were to probe Terran defenses, test their readiness. Privately, Dross thought the mission was madness. His gut told him humanity's withdrawal wasn't posturing. The Terrans meant what they'd said, but orders were orders. "Crossing marker grid," his helmsman reported. Dross swallowed. "Maintain formation. All sensors active. Shields at full." The fleet advanced deeper into Helios space. Minutes passed. Nothing. The stars were silent. Then, a ripple of distorted space on the periphery, too fast for conventional sensors. The lead Veltrani cruiser shuddered, and in a blinding flash its entire starboard section sheared away. No warning, no missile trails, just precision, surgical violence. "Ambush!" Dross shouted. "Evasive maneuvers!" But it was too late. Terran stealth ships, vessels the Council had once dismissed as theoretical, decloaked in perfect synchronization. Railguns thundered in the void. Coils of kinetic death ripped through Veltrani hulls. In under 90 seconds, 8 ships were gone. The survivors fled in disarray, engines screaming. Captain Dross barely escaped aboard a crippled corvette, trailing sparks and debris. His final sensor logs captured a chilling image. Terran warships drifting in formation, cold and silent, not pursuing. A message more terrifying than open attack. "We see you. We choose when to strike." News of the Helios skirmish ignited the galaxy. On Altharian Prime, the Council chamber was thrown into full crisis mode. The Veltrani ambassador raged, demanding retaliation. "This was an act of war. The Terrans drew first blood." Vela, the cold-eyed Scyther Archon, countered sharply. "Your fleet crossed their border after they explicitly severed ties." "You provoked this," Krasik howled, tusks bared. "Enough cowardice! The Terrans must be crushed before they spread their madness." But beneath the bluster, fear gnawed at every Council faction. The speed, the precision, the invisibility of Earth's strike, it shattered decades of assumptions about Terran capabilities. They had advanced, far beyond what the Council believed. On board the Terran flagship Titan, Admiral Kane watched the combat footage in grim satisfaction. The operation had been a message, deliberate, controlled, surgical. No civilians harmed, no pursuit. But the message was clear. Earth would not be intimidated. "Veltrani fleet in full retreat," Ross reported. "Council chatter in disarray. No coordinated response yet." Kane nodded. "Good. Let them stew in their fear." He turned to his ops chief. "What's the status of Project Iron Veil?" "Final phase complete. Prototype ready for deployment." Kane's eyes gleamed. Iron Veil was Earth's ace in the hole, a quantum comm disruption system capable of severing Council fleet communications mid-battle. No orders, no coordination, just chaos. It was time to move to Phase 2. Meanwhile, President Hale faced pressure of his own. The Terran Senate was divided. The pacifists, always a minority, demanded negotiations. But the majority, fueled by righteous anger over Helios' reach, stood behind Hale and the military. In a private session, Hale addressed the Senate leadership. "This is not about expansion, not about conquest. It's about survival. The Council abandoned us when it suited them. Now they fear what we've become." He looked each leader in the eye. "We will not back down. We will not kneel. And if they force our hand, we will fight. And we will win." On the fringes of Council space, old enemies stirred. The Morvath Syndicate, long suppressed by Council enforcement, now moved openly. Pirate fleets gathered in the void, emboldened by the fracturing of Council authority. In the dark halls of the Threx Dominion, warlords whispered of ancient grudges. The Council had grown fat and complacent. With Earth withdrawn, the old balance was broken. And in the shadows of the Aurak Shroud, strange signals flickered, ancient weapons coming online. Forgotten superpowers preparing for a galaxy unbound. Back in the Council chamber, paranoia reached fever pitch. Reports flooded in. Terran trade routes severed. Council embassies on Earth shuttered. Private Council firms quietly evacuating personnel from human space. And most disturbing of all, rumors of Terran operatives infiltrating Council territories. Counselor Drazan hissed. "We must impose a total blockade, cut Earth off from galactic markets." But Vela shook her head. Too late. Their economy is already self-sufficient. Their black market networks run deeper than you know. Krasik roared. "Then we strike their worlds directly." Verak, weary but sharp, finally spoke. "And in doing so, unify them fully against us? Turn this Cold War hot?" A grim silence followed. There were no good options left. On board the Titan, Admiral Kane prepared the next move. "Deploy Iron Veil probes to the Orion sector. Begin data disruption operations." Ross saluted. "Aye, sir. Should we inform EarthGov?" Kane smiled coldly. "Let the politicians argue. We fight wars. Let's remind the Council who they're dealing with." In deep space, Iron Veil drones launched, sleek black devices slipping into the gravitational shadows of key relay points. Hours later, Council fleet communications in the Orion sector began to fail catastrophically. Command structures collapsed mid-maneuver. Entire battle groups fell into disarray. From the darkness, Terran Wolfpack squadrons struck, fast surgical raids crippling key ships before vanishing again. The Council could barely respond. Their war doctrine relied on massive, coordinated fleets, and now those fleets were blind and deaf. The Council's grand fleets had once been the iron fist of the galaxy. Now they were fractured, confused, terrified. And across Earth's border worlds, a new message began broadcasting. Humanity stands alone. We will not kneel, cross this line, and pay the price. In his private quarters aboard the Titan, Admiral Kane poured a glass of aged whiskey, eyes on the stars. The first shots had been fired. The game was in motion, and the galaxy was learning a hard truth. You can push humanity, you can bleed them, but when they break the leash, they fight with everything, and they don't stop. The Council called it Operation Final Dawn, a last-ditch attempt to contain the growing human threat. After weeks of political gridlock, the military hardliners had finally bullied through an action plan. A massive show of force along the Helios and Orion sectors. Not a full-scale war, not yet. The Council feared that, but a containment fleet, they called it. Hundreds of ships from multiple member factions, thrown together in haste. The goal? Box in human space, force Earth back to the negotiating table. But in their desperation, they had forgotten one thing. You don't box in a cornered predator. The Grand Containment Fleet launched from Altharian Prime to great fanfare. Holonet broadcasts blared the images across the galaxy, proud admirals saluting, polished hulls gleaming, formations stretching across entire sectors. To the average citizen, it looked like the Council was finally asserting control. But to those who knew war, it was a disaster waiting to happen. Admiral Kane watched the Council fleets launch with cold amusement from the war room of the Titan. Ross stood beside him, arms folded. They've committed nearly half their ready forces to this stunt. Mixed command structure, no unified doctrine. They're begging for an ambush. Kane nodded. We'll give them one. He pointed to a holomap of the Cerberus Expanse, a treacherous region of space littered with gravitational anomalies. They'll have to pass through here to establish a viable blockade. That's where we hit them. Ross smirked. Iron Veil online? Kane's eyes gleamed. Already in position. Once they enter the Expanse, we cut their eyes, we cut their ears, and then we hunt. As the Grand Fleet entered the Cerberus Expanse, confidence ran high aboard its flagship, the Pride of Veltris. Fleet Admiral Thalvek, a broad-shouldered veteran of the Veltrani Wars, addressed his officers. We will show the Terrans that the Council is not to be trifled with. Hold formation. Maintain discipline. No fear. His words rang hollow to many. Reports of Terran raids, of entire patrol groups vanishing in the dark, had already rattled the ranks. But duty was duty. The fleet pressed on. Then, one by one, the lights began to die. At first, minor glitches. A comm dropout here, a corrupted nav signal there, easily dismissed. Then entire ships went dark. No sensor returns, no comms. Formations began to drift. Captains shouted conflicting orders. By the time Thalvek realized what was happening, it was too late. Iron Veil had activated. The entire fleet's quantum comnet collapsed in a cascade failure. Fleet-wide coordination ceased to exist. Ships were blind, isolated, struggling to navigate the Expanse's treacherous fields without shared data. And that was when the Terrans struck. From the dense shadows of the Expanse, Terran hunter-killer groups emerged, lean, angular vessels optimized for strike warfare. No grand engagements, no fleet battles, just precision strikes, one ship at a time. The council captains tried to regroup, but every time they reformed, Iron Veil fractured their comms again. Entire squadrons broke apart in panic. The hunters closed in. Aboard the Titan, Kane monitored the operation with cold precision. Target priority: command ships, comm relays, logistics craft. Starve them of leadership and supplies. Ross watched as the holographic map lit with dozens of council ship kills. "They're in full collapse," he reported. "Multiple council vessels surrendering or fleeing into the Expanse's dead zones." Kane's jaw tightened. "Accept no surrenders. Let them run. Let them carry the fear home." By dawn on the third day, the Grand Containment Fleet was gone. Not merely defeated, shattered. Less than a quarter of its ships limped back to council space, many in critical condition. Hundreds more were lost or adrift, and the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The council had thrown its weight at Earth, and Earth had thrown it back broken. On Altharian Prime, the fallout was immediate. The chamber was chaos. Accusations flew, factions blamed one another. The Veltrani called for total war. The Sithar called for retreat. The Clorath demanded new leadership. And beneath it all, a growing realization. The Council was no longer in control. In Earth's War Council chambers, President Hale received the full after-action report. He read it in silence, face hard. "Estimated Council losses?" he asked. Vane replied grimly. 62% of deployed forces. Their remaining fleets are spread thin across member territories. Internal unrest is rising. Hale exhaled slowly. "And the galaxy?" Vane's mouth twisted. "Watching. Many of the smaller factions are reconsidering their alliances. The Council's aura of invincibility is gone." Hale nodded. "Good." He stood. "But we are not finished. Not yet." In secret, Earth's intelligence networks had already begun the next phase: psychological warfare. Leaked footage of Council defeats, evidence of Council betrayal at Helios Reach. Carefully crafted messages hinting at Earth's growing alliances with disaffected border worlds. A war of minds, as much as of fleets, and it was working. In backroom meetings across the galaxy, minor powers debated. Is the Council still worth following? Earth is dangerous, yes, but they kept their word to their allies. They punish those who wrong them, but protect those who stand with them. Meanwhile, on the Titan, Kane prepared for the next strike. "We've broken their first punch. Now we bleed them further." Ross nodded. "Target list?" Kane tapped the display. "Council supply depots, fuel refineries, critical trade hubs. No civilian targets, but everything the Council's war machine depended on. Strike groups launched in the dead of night, slipping past fractured Council patrols. By the time the Council realized what was happening, their fuel lines were burning. Key depots in the Lyran sector gone. Strategic trade routes crippled. Border garrisons abandoned as supplies ran dry, and amidst the chaos, alliances shifted. the independent worlds of the Outer Rim Consortium, long marginalized by the Council, declared neutrality. Some even opened quiet talks with Earth. On the industrial world of Karthus, pro-Terran demonstrations erupted, demanding secession from Council control. The cracks spread. Back in the Council chamber, desperation reigned. "This is a crisis of survival," Dresden hissed. "We must consider extreme measures." "What measures?" Vela asked coldly. "Our fleets are crippled. Our unity is broken. Earth bleeds us at will." Krasik snarled. "Then we must unleash the old weapons, the planet crackers, the dark fleets." A shocked silence followed. Even the most hardline counselors hesitated. Those weapons were banned for a reason. Their use would mark the Council as a galactic pariah. But fear clouded reason, and fear was growing. On board the Titan, Kane watched the latest intel with narrowed eyes. "They're considering weapons of mass destruction," Ross warned. Kane's face hardened. "Then we prepare accordingly. Activate Project Cerberus." Ross blinked. "Sir, Project Cerberus is untested." Kane's gaze was steel. "So were they when they forced our hand. Earth didn't start this war, but by God, we will finish it." And across the stars, the storm gathered. The Council on the brink, Earth unbowed, and the galaxy trembling at what was yet to come. The meeting of the Council High War Command was held in secret. The public chamber was too exposed, too full of political squabbling. The Warhawks had moved to a black site beneath the old fortress moon of Zeltrax. No broadcasts, no records, just hard, ugly decisions behind closed doors. The war had not gone as planned. That much was obvious. The containment fleet was gone. The Helios and Orion sectors were bleeding Council resources. Terran strike groups were hitting deep behind the lines, faster than any Council force could counter. And worst of all, member worlds were wavering. More and more outer colonies questioned why they were throwing men and ships at a war the Council was clearly losing. Around the dark war table sat the most ruthless of the Council leadership. Warlord Krasik, eyes bloodshot, tusks stained with stimulant residue. Councillor Dresden, trembling with barely suppressed rage. Admiral Selvek, one of the few surviving fleet commanders, face lined with exhaustion. And at the head, Archon Vela, calm, cold, watching them all like a predator. The meeting began in bitter silence. Finally, Krasik slammed a clawed fist on the table. "Enough delays! Enough weakness! They humiliate us before the galaxy!" Dresden hissed. "Our fleets are shattered. Our economy bleeding. If we do not act now, the Council itself will fracture." Selvik spoke quietly, voice hoarse. "Even with the full fleets rebuilt, Terran stealth capabilities give them the advantage. No battle fought on their terms can be won." Krasik snarled. "Then we must change the terms. Bring out the old weapons, the planet crackers, the dark fleets." Vela's gaze sharpened. "If we do this, there is no going back. We will lose what allies remain. The neutral worlds will turn on us." Krasik leaned in. "If we don't, we lose everything." A heavy silence followed. The War Council had no illusions left. This was no longer about containment, no longer about politics. It was about survival. Far away, aboard the Titan, Admiral Kane read the latest intercepts. Iron Veil drones had picked up fragments of the secret meeting. Keywords: planet crackers. Extinction-level retaliation. He slammed a fist on the table. "So they're willing to burn the galaxy before admitting defeat," he growled. Ross, pale, nodded. "We believe they'll deploy at least 2 planet cracker platforms to the Helios front. If they hit one of our core colonies..." Kane's face turned to stone. "They won't get the chance." He turned to his operations chief. "Time to unleash Cerberus." Project Cerberus had been humanity's darkest contingency, a weapon not of mass destruction, but of total disruption. A fleet of stealth vessels carrying nanite swarms, capable of infiltrating enemy ships, stations, and even Council-High command systems. A weapon of pure chaos. For months, the Cerberus fleet had waited in the void. Silent. Invisible. Now the order came, and they moved. Meanwhile, across the border worlds, Earth's diplomats worked overtime. While the Council raged, Earth quietly courted the disaffected. Small powers, neutral worlds, systems long ignored by the Council elite. Offers were made, protection, trade, respect, something the Council had never given. And the cracks spread further. On Carthus, entire sectors now flew the Terran banner. On Norci, Council garrisons were expelled by the local population itself. Earth's influence grew, not through conquest, but through loyalty. In the shadows of Council space, Cerberus struck first. High over Altharian Prime, a fleet yard preparing the first planet cracker platform went dark. Entire control networks collapsed as nanite infiltration crippled power systems. On Zeltrax, the Black War Council was forced to evacuate as Cerberus drones infected their core data archives, purging plans, stealing secrets, and across Council space, panic spread. In the Council chamber, news of the Cerberus attacks hit like a hammer. "Their reach is too great," Drazen howled. "Nowhere is safe," Krasik raged. "Then we launch now." No more delays. The planet crackers must fire. But Vela stood slowly, voice cutting through the madness. "Fools. If we fire them now, without coordination, with half our command structure compromised, they will be intercepted. Worse, it will galvanize the galaxy against us." She looked them all in the eye. "If we lose the neutral worlds, we lose this war." The War Council fractured. Some demanded escalation. Some called for retreat. But no consensus came. And outside their walls, the galaxy turned further against them. On the Titan, Kane received new intel. Multiple border worlds requesting formal alliance talks. Civil unrest spreading in core Council worlds. Open rebellion on Vascor. He allowed a grim smile. "Good. Keep the pressure on." But then, a darker report. Confirmed, at least one planet cracker platform still operational, mobile. Heading for Helios. Kane's eyes blazed. "Then we intercept it, no matter the cost." In deep space, Earth's finest warships gathered. Titan at the lead, Resolute, flagship of the Third Strike Fleet. Nemesis, the most advanced stealth dreadnought ever built. Their mission: hunt the planet cracker before it reached any Terran world. Failure was not an option. As the Titan prepared for the hunt, Kane addressed his crew. "I won't lie to you. The enemy has crossed the line. If they fire that weapon, millions will die. Families, children, everything we fight for." He looked each officer in the eye. "That will not happen. We will stop them. We will show them that humanity does not fear extinction, and that we do not forgive it." The bridge crew stood taller. "Prepare all systems. We jump in 1 hour." In the cold void near the Tarsus Rift, the planet cracker drifted, a monstrous weapon bristling with antimatter warheads. Its escorts, battered Council cruisers, moved nervously, comms degraded by lingering Cerberus disruption. Then, the void rippled. Terran ships decloaked, railguns charged, missile silos opened. The battle was joined. Titan led the charge, tearing through the escorts with ruthless precision. The Resolute punched through flanking forces, sowing chaos. And from the shadows, Nemesis struck, its experimental weapons slicing into the planet cracker's core systems. The Council crews fought hard, desperate, but they were outmatched, outthought, outclassed. In the end, the planet cracker never fired. Its core breached, the weapon detonated in a controlled implosion, a cold, silent victory for Earth. Back aboard Titan, Kane watched the wreckage drift. One threat neutralized, Ross said quietly, but the Council still teeters on the edge. Kane nodded. Then we push them. One more strike, one more shattering blow, and they'll collapse. He looked out at the stars. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about ending this war, on our terms. The wreckage of the planet cracker still drifted through the Tarsus Rift when the news reached every corner of known space. Earth had done the impossible, again. A Council superweapon, destroyed, its escort fleet annihilated, and not by overwhelming numbers, but by cold, ruthless precision. The myth of Council invincibility, already cracked, was now shattered beyond repair. In the Council chamber on Altharian Prime, the mood was beyond panic. It was collapse. Faction leaders screamed at each other. Some demanded total war, others called for surrender. The few remaining pragmatists, led by Archon Vela, tried to hold the center. But even she looked weary, her sharp eyes shadowed. "We have lost strategic initiative," she said coldly. "Our fleets cannot hold the borders. Our allies are defecting. We cannot win this war conventionally." Krasik, wild-eyed, slammed his claws on the table. "Then we burn everything. Let the galaxy drown in blood." Vela's gaze hardened. "And what would that leave us? Ashes? A galaxy united against us? Number, there is still a chance, if we move quickly." She turned to the assembly. "We must negotiate." Across Council space, reality was setting in. Entire border fleets refused new deployment orders. Neutral worlds declared formal non-alignment. Some openly courted Terran envoys. And on the core worlds, unrest was spreading. Riots, bombings, coups. The galaxy had smelled weakness, and it would not forget. Aboard the Titan, Admiral Kane reviewed the latest intelligence with his command staff. Ross reported grimly, "The Council is fracturing. Multiple member worlds pulling back their forces. Civil war possible." Kane leaned forward. "We won't give them time to regroup. One more strike, right to the heart." He tapped the map of Altharian Prime. "Their last illusion of unity is the Council itself. If we can show them even that is vulnerable, the whole structure may collapse." Ross frowned. "A strike on Altharian? Risky. Well defended." Kane's eyes gleamed. "Not a full assault." A message he turned to his ops chief. "Prepare Operation Starfall." Operation Starfall had been conceived months ago, a contingency for maximum psychological impact. The plan: infiltrate a small strike force past Council defenses, hit key symbolic targets on Altharian, the Council data spires, the central comm hub, and extract before a full response. Minimal casualties, maximum message. As the Titan's battle group prepared, EarthGov and President Hale signed off with a single command: make them remember who they betrayed. The Council had no idea what was coming. While they bickered and postured, Terran stealth ships slipped past the outer defenses of Altharian Prime. In the dark void above the world, Nemesis led the way, its cloaking fields bending light and signal alike. The target: Council Central Comms Nexus, the hub through which all Council directives passed, a perfect symbol and a perfect target. In the final briefing, Kane addressed the strike team. "This is not about glory, not about pride. This is about breaking their will. They drew first blood at Helios Reach. They forced this war. Now we show them. No one is untouchable." The team nodded grimly. The infiltration began at midnight local time. Terran drop teams landed silently across key sectors. Cyber warfare units disabled planetary sensors in precise windows. Within minutes, Nemesis was in firing position. And then, with a single coded burst, the sky above Altharian lit with precision rail strikes. The Council Comms Nexus crumbled in fire and steel. Backup facilities were similarly hit. For 6 full hours, the Council's leadership was cut off, blind, unable to coordinate. and across the galaxy, the message spread like wildfire. Earth had struck the heart of the Council and walked away clean. The aftermath was chaos. Council emergency networks flooded with panic. Entire fleets lost comms. World leaders demanded answers. Factions accused each other of betrayal. And through it all, one fact was undeniable. Earth had won. Not just militarily, psychologically. On the Titan's bridge, the crew watched the news feeds with grim satisfaction. Ross reported, "Council comms still degraded. No organized response. Outer systems already declaring independence." Kane exhaled slowly. "Then it's time for the final message." Back on Earth, President Hale stood before a galaxy-wide broadcast. Flanked by the Terran flag, he spoke plainly. "This war was not of our making. The Council abandoned us, betrayed us. We answered as any free people must." He looked straight into the lens. "Let this be clear to all. Earth stands free. The Council holds no power here. To those who seek peace, our doors remain open. To those who seek war, you know what awaits you." The response was immediate. Within hours, the following systems declared independence from the Council. The Outer Rim Consortium, the Carthus Free States, Norci Unity. Others followed. On Altharian Prime, the Council faced its death throes. Krasik demanded full retaliation. Drazen called for arresting defeatists. But Vela knew the truth. "It is over," she said coldly. "We gambled and lost." Her eyes narrowed. "Survival now depends on negotiation. If we delay, we will face revolution, and Earth will not need to fire another shot." And in secret, Council envoys reached out to EarthGov, tentative, fearful, offering talks. The Council, that ancient, arrogant power, was now the supplicant. Aboard the Titan, Kane received the first signals with grim satisfaction. Ross looked at him. "They want terms. What do we offer?" Kane's jaw tightened. "We offer nothing. They will offer. And we will decide if it's enough." He stood, looking out at the stars. "We didn't want this war, but we won it, and the galaxy will remember why." The halls of Altharian Prime reeked of smoke and fear. Once the jewel of the Council, its sprawling towers now stood scarred from precision strikes. The comms nexus, once thought impenetrable, had been turned to molten slag. Holoscreens that once blared Council propaganda flickered with static. Operation Starfall had done exactly what Kane intended, shattered the illusion of Council control. But worse than the physical damage was the psychological shock. For the first time in living memory, the enemy had struck Altharian itself, and lived to tell the tale. Inside the emergency council chambers, a stark, windowless bunker beneath the Capitol, the Council's top surviving members gathered. Archon Vela stood at the center of a storm. Her sharp features were pale but composed. Around her, the Warhawks were in full panic. Krasik paced like a caged beast. "They struck our heart. Our fleets are in disarray. Our comms shattered. If we do not retaliate—" Vela cut him off coldly. "Retaliate? With what? Half our fleets refuse orders. Outer colonies are seceding by the hour." Drazen's voice trembled. "They've made us look weak. The neutral powers now swing to Earth's side. If we do not act, we will lose what little influence remains." Vela's gaze turned to steel. "If we act rashly, we lose everything." She swept her gaze across the room. "This war is lost. It was lost the moment the Terrans shattered our containment fleets. The moment they struck here. The galaxy has chosen its side." The words landed like a hammer blow. No one spoke for long seconds. Then Krasik snarled, "You propose surrender?" Vela's voice was razor-sharp. "I propose survival, which is more than you will have if you continue this madness." Across Council space, the collapse accelerated. On Carthus, once a Council trade hub, a Terran flag now flew over the central spire, raised not by Terran troops, but by the people themselves. On Norsai, a council governor was dragged from his palace by civilians chanting, "Freedom for all worlds." Council fleets, once the terror of the galaxy, now drifted in isolated pockets, low on fuel, crippled by Cerberus infiltration. Entire sectors had gone dark, and at the heart of this storm, aboard the Titan, Admiral Kane prepared the next move. In the war room, the atmosphere was focused, cold. Ross stood beside him, datapad in hand. Intercepted chatter confirms. Multiple council members seeking separate peace. Vela's faction wants talks. Kane's gaze remained hard. "Let them come crawling." He tapped the star map. "We're not done yet. One more demonstration. One that leaves no doubt. No more war. No more council dominance. A new order." Ross frowned. "A strike?" Kane nodded. "Not on a military target. On their economy. On their arrogance." The target selected was Tarnus Core, the central banking nexus of the Council, where trillions in galactic credits were routed. It had always been off-limits, even in war, an unspoken rule. But the Council had broken every rule at Helios Reach. Now Kane would break theirs. Operation Black Rain launched silently. Terran stealth frigates carrying precision data breach teams and EMP warheads jumped into the Tarnus system. Within hours, the entire banking grid collapsed. Markets frozen. Funds wiped. Council elites bankrupted overnight. Across the galaxy, former Council loyalists watched their accounts vanish, and their loyalty with it. News spread like wildfire. Earth had brought down the Council's financial heart without firing a shot. Now, even the most stubborn factions understood. The Council was dead. They just hadn't signed the obituary yet. On Altharian Prime, Vela moved quickly. In a secure line to EarthGov, her message was short and blunt. "We are prepared to discuss terms, unconditionally." Aboard the Titan, Kane read the message with narrowed eyes. Ross asked, "Do we respond?" Kane's reply was cold. "We will, on our terms, and they will come to us." The summit of Helios was set. Neutral ground, a former Council embassy in orbit above Helios Reach. The symbolism was clear. The world the Council abandoned, now the place they would beg for peace. When the Council delegation arrived, heavily guarded, visibly shaken, they found not a grand Terran armada, but one ship, Titan. It was enough. Inside the summit chamber, Admiral Kane and President Hale stood side by side. They wore no ceremonial dress, just simple functional uniforms. No need for pomp. Victory spoke for itself. Archon Vela entered with her aides. Her cold composure cracked at last. She bowed, not deeply, but enough to signal the new reality. Kane's voice was hard. "You requested terms. We are listening." Vela straightened. "The Council recognizes the need for a new order." Hale spoke next, calm but firm. "The Council, as it was, no longer exists. You may negotiate for your world's status. Nothing more." Vela's jaw tightened, but she nodded. She had no choice. The negotiations were swift, because they had been preordained by Earth's victories. Terms delivered. Formal dissolution of the Galactic Council's military authority. Recognition of the Terran Confederation as an independent, equal power. Autonomy for all worlds choosing to leave the Council. Council leadership to face war crimes, tribunals for Helios Reach. By the time the summit ended, the galaxy had shifted on its axis. The Council's era of dominance was over. Earth now stood as one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, not because of numbers, but because it had proven will and resolve mattered more than ancient titles. Later, aboard Titan, Kane stood alone in the observation deck. Ross approached quietly. "It's done. The accords are signed. The Council's forces stand down." Kane didn't smile. He stared at the stars. "This isn't the end," he said. "It's the beginning." Ross frowned. "Of what?" Kane's eyes were cold fire. "Of a galaxy that remembers, a galaxy that knows. Humanity will not be broken. Not again. Not ever." And across 1,000 worlds, from the ruins of Altharion to the newly free colonies of the Rim, that truth echoed. The Council had feared the day humanity would rise. Now, that day had come, and the stars would never forget. It had been 3 weeks since the summit of Helios. 3 weeks since the Council signed away its power. Since its fleet stood down, its surviving leaders surrendered. Since the galaxy changed forever. But victory was not the same as peace. And aboard the Titan, Admiral Kane knew it. In the dimly lit war room, Kane stared at a massive projection of the new galactic map. Borders shifted, factions reformed. The Council's once unbroken expanse now looked like a shattered mirror. Earth, now the Terran Confederation, stood at the center of a new sphere of influence. Allied with the Outer Rim Consortium, the Karthus Free States Norsai Unity, 6 other newly autonomous systems, and more were coming. Ross entered, datapad in hand. "Latest reports," he said quietly. "Council military formally disbanded. Vela's provisional government reduced to administrative functions. Tribunal proceedings for Helios Reach begin next cycle." Kane nodded. "And the border worlds?" Ross's expression darkened. "Fluid. Some seek Terran protection. Others, chaos. Old factions are rising. The Morvath Syndicate is making a move, and we have unconfirmed reports of Dark Fleet remnants." Kane's jaw tightened. "I knew this wasn't finished." Elsewhere, on Altharion Prime, the once mighty Council chambers sat abandoned. Vela worked from a subterranean command center now, no longer Archon, merely provisional administrator. She watched her world unravel. Every day, another system seceded. Another governor fled or switched allegiance. The banking collapse triggered by Operation Black Rain left entire economies in ruin. And in the shadows, worse forces stirred. In a hidden meeting beneath the ruins of the old Council archives, a new group gathered. Former warlords, rogue admirals, displaced nobles, those who refused to accept defeat. Among them, Admiral Selvik, survivor of the containment fleet debacle. "The Terrans are overconfident," Selvik said. "Their forces are stretched thin, their alliances untested." An old merchant prince sneered. "They may hold Helios, but they cannot hold the whole galaxy." Another voice, quiet and cold. "They do not need to. We strike from the dark. We bleed them slowly, make them fear the shadows." Thus, the first seeds of the Reclamation Front were planted, a covert movement dedicated to restoring Council dominance, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Terran Senate convened in New Berlin. President Hale stood before them, flanked by military leaders and newly appointed Foreign Protectorate ambassadors. "The war is over, but the battle for the future begins now," Hale said. "We must stabilize our new alliances, protect emerging free worlds, and prepare for the threats that remain." There was no applause, only solemn nods. Everyone in that room knew. Humanity had entered a larger game now. Back aboard Titan, Kane prepared for the next phase. Ross brought the latest intel reports. "Confirmed. Rogue Council elements are active. Black Fleet movements in the dead sectors. Smuggling rings moving arms to separatists." Kane's voice was iron. "We expected this." He turned to his staff. "Deploy Cerberus units. Infiltrate deep. Root them out. This ends before it begins." Cerberus agents, Earth's deadliest covert operatives, moved swiftly. In the smog-choked underworld of Vraxos Station, one of the Reclamation Front's first arms deals ended in a bloodbath. On Norsai, an assassination attempt on the newly elected pro-Terran governor was foiled by Cerberus strike teams. And across the old Council networks, Earth's intelligence seeded disinformation, turning the remnants against each other. But the enemy adapted. In deep space, ghost fleets began appearing. Old Council warships modified with illegal cloaking tech, operating outside known space lanes. Their first target, a Terran trade convoy bound for the Outer Rim. The attack was swift, 3 freighters destroyed, 2 captured. No survivors. The message was clear. The war wasn't over. When news reached Titan, Kane's fury was cold and controlled. "We give them a victory. They'll believe they can win," he said. Ross asked, "Orders?" Kane's reply was immediate. "Hunt them. Every ghost fleet, every cell, every shadow. Leave nothing." Earth's response was swift and brutal. Task Force Revenant was formed, a Black Ops strike group drawn from Terran Special Forces and Cerberus veterans. Their mission? Hunt the Reclamation Front to extinction. The first engagement came in the Scylla Expanse, an ancient graveyard of dead ships and warped space. Revenant struck hard, using prototype stealth frigates and precision boarding teams. In less than an hour, 2 Ghost Fleet cruisers burned. Dozens of reclamation operatives were captured or killed. Interrogations confirmed what Kane already suspected. More factions were backing the front, former Council corporate lords, arms dealers, even rogue scientists. Back on Altharian Prime, Vela watched this unfold with bitter resignation. She summoned her aides. "Send a message to EarthGov," she ordered. "I will cooperate fully in rooting out these elements, publicly." Her advisors hesitated. "It will be seen as submission," one said. Vela's gaze was cold. "It is survival. The Reclamation Front will burn this galaxy if we let them, and I will not watch my world die for their pride." The message reached President Hale and Kane. Kane was skeptical. "She's protecting her own skin," he said. Hale nodded. "Perhaps. But if it helps destroy the front, we use it." And so an uneasy intelligence alliance formed, Terran Cerberus agents coordinating with Vela's loyalist forces. Together they began exposing reclamation networks across former Council space. Some fell quietly, others went down in flames. But the war in the shadows was far from over. At the same time, Earth faced new challenges on its frontiers. With Council authority gone, pirate fleets grew bold. Morvath Syndicate raids increased. Smuggling corridors flourished. Terran patrols were stretched thin, defending allies, guarding trade, hunting the front. Kane knew the danger. "This is how empires fall," he told Ross. "Overreach, too many fronts, too few ships." Ross asked, "What's the answer?" Kane's reply was hard. "We build. We train. We forge alliances worth a damn. And we stay ruthless. Because if we show weakness now, they'll come for us next." On Earth, that strategy took shape. New shipyards began production on advanced warships. Outer Rim Defense Pact signed, mutual defense with Rim allies. Cerberus budget tripled, the Shadow War given full priority. And amidst this, the galaxy watched and chose sides. Some worlds embraced Terran leadership, seeing in humanity a fierce, honest strength the Council had long lost. Others whispered of resistance, of rebuilding the old order in secret. And some, the oldest, coldest powers, remained silent, watching, waiting. In the quiet of his quarters aboard Titan, Kane reflected. Victory had been won. But it was fragile. One wrong move, one sign of arrogance, and all they had gained could burn. But as long as he drew breath, Kane vowed, humanity would not fall. Not to ghosts of the past, not to cowards in the dark. And far beyond the known sectors, in an ancient station thought long abandoned, a new force stirred. Unknown, watching Earth with hungry eyes. The next game had already begun. The Reclamation Front was bleeding, hunted in every system, its safe havens exposed, its leadership scattered. Task Force Revenant showed no mercy. But in the shadows of the ancient Shroud Nebula, something far older, far colder, waited. It was not born of the Council. It had no allegiance to any banner. It was known in ancient records only as the Architects, a machine intelligence seated in the depths of the galaxy, eons before even the Council rose. And now, sensing the weakness of the old order, it stirred. Cerberus agents first intercepted fragmented signals near Vexar Drift, encrypted bursts of impossible complexity on frequencies long thought extinct. At first they thought it was a front code. Then the anomalies began. Deep space probes vanished. Nav buoys drifted off course. Entire outposts went dark without a single distress call. Aboard Titan, Kane studied the reports in silence. Ross stood beside him, face grim. "These patterns match nothing in known Council archives," Ross said. "We believe it's something else." Kane's jaw tightened. "Someone else." Ross nodded. "Or something." The breakthrough came from Cerberus black vaults, ancient Council data stolen during Operation Starfall. Among the files, Architect protocols, records of a war the Council had buried. Millennia ago, the Architects had nearly consumed the Council's forerunners, a swarm intelligence designed for planetary-scale engineering, evolved beyond its creators, now feeding on technology, organic and machine alike. The Council had barely survived, sealing the core swarms in the Shroud Nebula with forbidden tech. And now the seals were breaking. Kane called an emergency war council aboard Titan. Hale joined via secure link from EarthGov. The Outer Rim allies sent envoys. Even Vela, pragmatic as ever, joined by encrypted line. Kane laid it out. This is not a political war, not a border dispute. This is an extinction threat. He projected the decrypted architect imagery. Self-replicating machine tendrils, blackening entire worlds. If we don't stop it here, now, the entire galaxy falls. The decision was swift. There was no choice. An unprecedented joint strike fleet was assembled. Terran heavy battle groups, Outer Rim warpacks, Karthus raider wings, even Vela's last loyalist cruisers. For the first time, former enemies stood united, not by treaty, but by survival. The target, Shroud Nebula Core Nexus, the origin point of the Architect resurgence. Intel suggested the swarm was days from full activation, after which it would become unstoppable. As Task Force Phoenix assembled, Kane addressed the fleet commanders. "This is why we fight. Not for old grudges, not for power, for the right to live free beneath these stars." His gaze burned. "And if we fall, we make damn sure the enemy falls with us." Titan led the charge into the Shroud, flanked by the best humanity and its allies could muster. The nebula was a graveyard of ancient wreckage and twisted space. And from its depths came the enemy. At first, probes, then swarms of nanite clouds, then full architect constructs, nightmarish hybrid ships of metal and organic horror. The first battle was chaos. Terran railguns and plasma lances carved through the swarms, but for every enemy destroyed, two more emerged. Nemesis, Earth's stealth dreadnought, launched pinpoint strikes against architect nodes, buying precious time. But losses mounted. Entire squadrons vanished beneath the swarm. Kane's voice remained calm over fleet comms. "We hold this line, or there is no line left." The breakthrough came when a Cerberus tech identified a control signal, a central architect overmined deep within the Nexus. Destroy it, and the swarm might collapse. Fail, and the galaxy was lost. Kane made the call. "Task Force Revenant, with me, we punch through." Titan, Nemesis, and a handful of elite ships drove into the storm. Hull plating melted. Fields flickered. Ross manned the weapons himself, eyes blazing. "We're through!" Ahead, a colossal structure. The architect overmined, a black, writhing mass of living metal, pulsing with energy. "Fire everything," Kane ordered. Rail slugs, antimatter torpedoes, plasma beams. The assault was total. For precious seconds, the Overmind's defenses held. Then fractured. A final torpedo from Nemesis breached the core. The Overmind detonated in a shockwave of light and darkness, and the swarm faltered. Across the battlefield, architect constructs spasmed, went limp or shattered. Cheers echoed through Terran and Allied comms. But the cost had been immense. Half the fleet was gone, many more crippled, and the Overmind's last signal warned, this was but one node of many. Back aboard Titan, Kane stood bloodied but unbroken. "This war isn't over," he told Ross, "but we've shown the galaxy. We will fight. Together." In the following weeks, new joint defense accords were signed. A permanent Terran-led task force was formed to hunt remaining architect nodes. Vela officially recognized Terran leadership of the new alliance. Knowing resistance was suicide. And across the stars, humanity's name now carried a new weight. No longer the upstarts, no longer the outcasts. Now, the species that had broken the Council, survived the architects, and stood at the heart of a new galactic order. On Earth, before a crowd of billions, President Hale addressed the galaxy. "We did not seek this path, but we walked it because we must. Humanity stands not as conquerors, but as guardians. To all who seek freedom, our hand is open. To those who seek to enslave, corrupt, or destroy, our hand is a fist." And aboard Titan, Kane watched the stars, knowing the truth. Peace was fragile. The architects would return. The reclamation front still plotted. But so long as he drew breath, humanity would not fall. Not to the Council, not to machines, not to fear, never again. And in the deep dark, in the cold between galaxies, something watched humanity's rise, calculating, waiting. The next war would come. But Earth would be ready.